November 14th, 1998, the members of Tectonic Theater project traveled to Laramie, Wyoming to conduct interviews with the people of the town. Over the next year, we would return to Laramie several times and conduct over 200 interviews. The play you're about to see is edited from those interviews, as well as journal entries by the company members and other found texts. Company member Greg Karate.
My first interview was with the Detective Sergeant Hing of the Laramie Police Department. At the beginning of the interview, he was sitting behind his desk.
I was born and raised here. My family is third generation. My grandparents moved here in the early 1900s. We basically had three. Well, my daughter makes it fourth generation. It's a good place to live. Good people, lots of space. Now, the reason that the towns in southern Wyoming are all laid out in space is because the railroad came through here. You know, it was how far they could go before having to refuel and re-water. And, well, Laramie was a major stopping point. You know, we're one of the largest states in the country and the least populated.
There's so much space between people and towns here, so much time for reflection.
Rebecca Hilliker, head of the theater department at the University of Wyoming.
You have an opportunity to be happy in your life here. I found that people here were nicer than they were in the Midwest because they were happy. They were glad the sun was shining, and it shines a lot here.
What you got is, you got your old-time traditional type ranchers. They've been here forever. Laramie's a major hub of where they come for their supplies and stuff like that.
Stewardship is one thing all our ancestors taught us.
Eileen Engine, rancher.
If you don't take care of your land, you ruin it, and you lose your living. So first you gotta take care of your land and do everything you can to improve it.
I love it here.
Doc O'Connor, limousine driver.
You couldn't put me back in that mess out there back east. Best thing about it is the climate, the cold, the wind. They say the Wyoming wind will drive a man insane, but you know what? Don't bother me. Well, some of the times they bother me, but most times they don't.
And then you've got the university population.
I moved here after living in a couple of big cities.
Phil Dubois, president of the University of Wyoming.
I loved it out there, but you'd have to be out of your mind to let your kids out after dark. And here, in the summertime, my kids play out till 11 o'clock at night, and I don't think twice.
And then you've got the people that live in Laramie, basically.
I moved here from rural Texas.
Zachy Salmon, Laramie resident.
Now, in Laramie, if you don't know a person, you will definitely know someone they know, so it can only be 1 degree removed at most. And for me, I love it because I get to go to the grocery store and visit with 4 or 5 or 6 people every time I go. And I don't really mind people knowing my business, because what's my business? I mean, my business is basically good.
I like the trains too. They don't bother me. Well, some of the times they bother me, but most times they don't.
See, Doc actually lives up in Bosler, but everyone in Laramie knows him. He's also not really a doctor.
Used to carry cattle, them trains. Now all they carry is diapers and cars.
I grew up in Cody, Wyoming.
April Silva, university student.
Laramie's better than where I grew up. I'll give it that.
It's a good place to live. You know, good people, lots of space. Now, when the incident happened with that boy, lots of press people came out here, and one time, some of them followed me out to the crime scene. It was just it was a beautiful day, you know, real clear and crisp, absolutely gorgeous, and the sky was that blue that, you know, you'll just never be able to paint it, just sky blue, just gorgeous, and the mountains in the background, a little snow on them. And this one reporter person who was out there came up to me and said,
"Well, who found the boy? Who was out here anyway?"
And I said, "Well, this is a really popular place for people to run, and mountain biking is really big out here, horseback riding, it's just, well, it's close to town." And he turns to me and says,
"Who the hell would want to run out here?"
And I'm just thinking, sir, you're missing the point. You know, all you gotta do is turn around, see the mountains, smell the air, listen to the birds, just take in what's around you. But they were all nothing but the story. I didn't feel like we were being judged, I just felt like they were stupid, you know? They're missing the point. They're missing the whole point.
It's hard to talk about Laramie now. To tell you what Laramie is for us.
Jedediah Schultz.
If you would have asked me before, I would have told you. Laramie is a beautiful town, secluded enough that you can have your own identity, a town with a strong sense of community. Everyone knows everyone. A town with a personality that most larger cities are stripped of. Now, after Matthew, I would say that Laramie is a town defined by an accident, a crime, or a noun, a definition, a sign. We may be able to get rid of that, but it will sure take a while.
Journal entries. Members of the company. Andy Paris.
Moises called saying he had an idea for his next theater project, but there was a somberness to his voice. So I asked him what it was all about, and he told me he wanted to do a piece about what's happening in Wyoming.
Stephen Belber.
Lee told me the company was thinking of going out to Laramie to conduct some interviews and that they wanted me to come. But I'm hesitant. I have no real interest in prying into a town's unraveling.
Amanda Gronich.
I've never done anything like this in my life. How do you get people to talk to you? What do you ask?
Moises Kaufman.
The company's agreed that we should go to Laramie for a week to interview people. I'm a bit nervous about taking 10 people on a trip of this nature. Must make some safety rules. Nobody works alone. Everybody carries cell phones. I made some preliminary contacts with Rebecca Hilliker, the head of the theater department at the University of Wyoming. She's hosting a party for us our first night in Laramie and has promised to introduce us to some possible interviewees.
I must tell you that when I first heard that you were thinking of coming here, when you first called, I wanted to say that you kicked me in the stomach. Why are you doing this to me? But then I thought, that's stupid. You're not doing this to me. And more importantly, I thought about it and decided we have so much negative closure on this whole thing, and the students, they really need to talk. You know, when this first happened, they started talking, but then the media descended and all dialogue stopped. You know, I really love my students because they're free thinkers. And you may not like what they have to say because they can be very redneck, but they're honest and they're truthful. You know, there's a dynamic here that's so much different in the Midwest or North Dakota where I used to teach, because there, so much Puritanism dictated how people looked at the world. People didn't have an opinion on anything. You couldn't get them to express an opinion. And quite honestly, I'd rather have opinions that I don't like and have that dynamic in education. There's a student I think you should talk to. His name is Jedediah Schultz.
I've lived in Wyoming my whole life. The family has been in Wyoming, well, for generations now. When it came time to go to college, my parents couldn't afford to send me to college. I wanted to study theater, and I knew that if I was going to go to college, I was going to have to get on a scholarship. And so they have this competition each year, this Wyoming State High School competition. And I knew that if I didn't take first place in duets, that I wasn't going to get a scholarship. So I went to the theater department of the university looking for good scenes, and I asked one of the professors, I was like, I need a killer scene. And he's like, here you go, this is it. And it was from Angels in America. And so I read it, and I knew that I could win best scene if I did a good enough job. And when the time came, I told my parents so that they would come to the competition. Now you have to understand, my parents go to everything. Every ball game, every hockey game, everything I've ever done. And they brought me into the room and told me that if I did that scene, that they wouldn't come to see me in the competition. Because, well, they believe that it's wrong. That homosexuality is wrong. They felt that strongly about it that they wouldn't come see their son do probably the most important thing he'd done to that point in his life. And I didn't know what to do. I had never, ever gone against my parents' wishes, so I was kind of worried about it. But I decided to do it, and all I can remember about the competition is that when we were done, me and my scene partner, we came up to each other and we shook hands, and there was a standing ovation. Oh man, it was amazing. And we took first place, and we won, and that's how come I can afford to be here at the university, because of that scene. It was one of the best moments of my life, and my parents weren't there. And to this day, that is the one thing that they didn't see me do. And looking back on it, I think, why did I do it? Why did I oppose my parents? Because I'm not gay. So why did I do it? And I guess the only honest answer is that, well, I wanted to win. It was such a good scene. It was like the best scene. Do you know Mr. Kushner? Maybe you can tell him.
Company member Greg Perotti.
We arrived today at the Denver airport and drove to Laramie. The moment we crossed the Wyoming border, I swear I saw a herd of buffalo. Also, I thought it was strange that the Wyoming sign said,
Wyoming, like no place on earth.
Instead of Wyoming, like no place else on earth.
Company member Lee Fondakowski.
I stopped at a local inn for a bite to eat, and my waitress said to me,
Hi, my name is Debbie. I was born in 1954, and Debbie Reynolds was big then, so yes, there are a lot of us around. But I promise I won't slap you if you leave your elbows on the table.
Today the company tried to explain to me to no avail what chicken fried steak was.
Now, are you from Wyoming, or are you just passing through?
we're just passing through.
Company member Barbara Pitts.
We arrived in Laramie tonight, just past the Welcome to Laramie sign, population 26,687. The first thing to greet us was Walmart. In the dark, we could be on any main drag in America, fast food chains, gas stations, but as we drove into the downtown, just by the railroad tracks, the buildings still looked like a turn-of-the-century western town. Oh, and at the University Inn, where amenities such as heated pool, cable TV are usually touted, it said, "Hate is not a Laramie value."
Greg Perotti.
I met today two longtime Laramie residents, Allison Mears and Marge Murray, two social service workers who taught me a thing or two.
Well, what Laramie was like when Marge was growing up, well, it was mostly rural.
Yeah, it was. My kids all had horses. I really enjoyed it.
Well, there was more land then. You could have your pet cow, your horse, your chickens, just have your bit of acreage.
Yeah, I could run around the house in my all-togethers, do the housework while the kids were at school, and nobody could see me. But if they got that close...
Well, then that's their problem.
Yeah.
I want to make sure I got this phrasing right. In your all-togethers?
Well, yeah, honey, why wear clothes?
Now, how's this play?
So this is a big ranching town?
Oh, not just ranching. This was a big railroad town at one point, too. Before they moved everything to Cheyenne, Green River, Omaha. But even in, what was it, the 50s? Well, they had one big roundhouse with such a shop they could build a complete engine.
Yes, my mom worked there.
Your mom worked in a roundhouse?
Her name was Minnie. She washed engines. We used to, you know, sing that song. That song.
What song?
Okay. Run for the roundhouse, Minnie. They can't corner you there.
But I'll tell you, Wyoming's bad in terms of jobs. I mean, the university has the big, high, whoop-de-doo jobs, but unless you're a professional, the bulk of the people are working minimum wage jobs.
Yeah, I've been working in the service industry or bartending most of my life. Now I know everybody in town.
And she does.
And I do. Now that I tell you, here in Laramie, there's a difference and there always has been. What it is a class distinction. It's about the ones that are educated and the ones that are not. And the ones that are educated don't understand why the ones that are not don't get educated. And that's why I told you before, my kids had to fight because their mother was a bartender. Never mind. I was the best damn bartender in the world.
And she was.
That's not bragging, that's a fact.
But here in Laramie, if it weren't for the university, we'd be SOL.
What's SOL?
Well, it's shit out of luck. Lordy, you got that on your tape. You are getting an education today.
Yes, I am. So let me just ask you, what was your reaction when this happened to Matthew?
Well, I've been close enough to the case to know many of the people. You see, my daughter is on the sheriff's department. As far as the gay issue, I don't give a damn one way or the other, as long as they don't bother me. And even if they do, then I'll just say, no thank you. And that's the attitude of most of the Laramie population. They might poke one, you know, they've been in a bar situation, might actually smack one in the mouth, but they just carry on about their business. Laramie is live and let live.
I'd say Marge knows more than even she's willing to let on, but we have to respect her for that.
Well, where exactly are you going with this story?
We haven't quite decided yet. But when we're finished, we're going to try to bring it back around to Laramie.
Okay, then there are parts I won't tell you.
Company member Andy Paris.
Today, for the first time, we met someone who actually knew Matthew Shepard. Trish Dager, owner of a shop in Pat, referred to him as Matt.
Matt used to come into my shop. That's how I knew him.
It was the first time I heard him referred to as Matt instead of Matthew. Did he go by Matt to everyone?
Well, on the 2nd of October, I get a phone call about 10 after 7.
Dr. O'Connor.
It was Matthew Shepard, and he said to me, "Can you pick me up at the corner of 3rd and Grand?" So anyhow, I pull up to the corner to see who Matthew Shepard. It's a little guy, about 5'2", soaking wet. I bet you 97 pounds tops. You see, he weighed 110, but I wouldn't believe it. They also said he was about 5'5" in the newspapers. But this man, he's really only about 5'2", maybe 5'1". So he walks up to the window. I'm going to try going steps so you can better understand the principle of this man. He walks up to the window and I say, "Are you Matthew Shepard?" And he says, "Yeah, I'm Matthew Shepard, but I don't want you to call me Matthew or Mr. Shepard. I don't want you to call me anything. My name is Matt, and I want you to know I am gay, and we're going to go to a gay bar. Do you have a problem with that?" And I said, "How are you paying?" Fact is, Laramie doesn't have any gay bars, and for that matter, neither does Wyoming. So he's hiring me to take him down to Fort Collins, Colorado, about an hour away. That was a blunt little shit. You know what I'm saying? He always was, but I liked him because he was straightforward. You see what I'm saying? Maybe gay, but straightforward. You see what I'm saying?
I don't know, how does one person ever really tell about another? You should really talk to my sister, Romaine. She was a very close friend of Matthew's.
We never called him Matthew, actually. Most of the time we called him Choo Choo, because we used to call him Matt Choo, and then we just called him Choo Choo. And whenever I think of Matthew, I always think of his incredible beaming smile. He'd walk in a room and he'd just be like, smiling. He just made you feel great. And he would stare people down in the coffee shop because he always wanted to sit on the end seat so he could talk to me while I was working. And if anyone was ever sitting in that seat, he would just sit there and stare at them until they left. But Matthew definitely had a political side to him. He really wanted to get into political affairs. That's all his big interest was watching CNN and MSNBC. That's all I ever saw his TV station tuned into. He was just really smart in political affairs, but not so smart in common sense things. So he moves to Laramie to go to school.
Matthew was very shy when he first came in.
John Peacock, Matthew Shepard's academic advisor.
To the point of being somewhat mousy, I'd almost say. He was having some difficulties adjusting, but this was home for him, and he made that quite clear. And so his mousiness, his shyness, gave way to a person that was excited about this track that he was going to embark on. He was just figuring out wanting to work on human rights, how he was going to do that. And when that happens, this person begins to bloom a little bit. He was starting to say, wow, there are opportunities here. There are things that I can do in this world. I can be important.
I did hear from Matthew about 48 hours before his attack, and he told me he had just joined the gay and lesbian group on campus, and he was really enjoying it. And he was getting ready for Pride Week and whatnot. He was totally stoked about school. Yeah, he was really happy about being there.
And in retrospect, and I can only say this in retrospect, of course, I think that's where he was headed, towards human rights, which only adds to the irony and tragedy of this.
Let me tell you something else here. There are more gay people in Wyoming than meets the eye. I know for a fact. They're not particularly, what do you call them? Queens, gay people. Queens, run around faggot type people. No, they're the ones who throw bail, hay, jump on horses, brand them, and kick ass. You see what I'm saying? As I always say, don't fuck with the Wyoming queer, because he will kick you in your fucking ass. That's not the point I'm trying to say here. Because I know a lot of gay people in Wyoming, I know a lot of people, period. I've been lived up here for some 40-odd years. You see what I'm saying? Now, I don't think Wyoming people give a damn One way or another, if you're gay or straight. That's just what I said. It doesn't matter. If there's 8 men and 1 woman in a Wyoming bar, which is often the case, now you stop and think. Who's getting what? You see what I'm saying? Now, geez, it don't take a big intelligent mind to figure that one out.
My understanding when I first came here,
Catherine Conway,
is that I was the first out lesbian or gay faculty member on campus. And that was in 1992, which wasn't that long ago. They asked me in my interview what my husband did for a living, and so I came out then. Do you want a funny story? When you first get here, there's all these things you have to do. So one day I was in my office and I noticed that this woman had called. I was expecting it was a health insurance phone call, something like that. So I call her back, and I can hear her. She's on her keyboard, clicking away. And so I say, "This is Kathy Connolly returning your phone call." And she says, "Oh, it's you." And I think, this is bizarre. And she says, I hear you're gay. I hear you are." And I was like, "Uh-huh." And she says, "I hear you came as a couple. I'm one too. Not a couple, just a person." And so she was. A kind of lesbian who knew that I was coming. And she said that she wanted to meet up immediately. And then I later found out from her that there were other lesbians who knew that I was coming and that they wouldn't be seen with me. That I would irreparably taint them. That just to be seen with me could be some kind of a problem.
When I came here, I knew it was going to be hard, as a gay man.
Jonas Loneker.
But I kept telling myself, people should live where they want to live. And there'd be times when I would go down to Denver and go to gay bars, and people would ask where I'm from. I'd say, Laramie, Wyoming. And I met so many men down there, so many gay men from Wyoming, who were like, "That's not a place where I can live, I had to get out. How can you live there? Grr, grr, grr." But every once in a while, there'd be this one guy, "Oh gosh, I miss Laramie. That's where I want to live." And they get this starry-eyed look, and I'm like, if that's where you want to live, then do it. Imagine if more gay people stayed in small towns. But it's easier said than done, of course.
Today, our company is moving from the motel and headed for the Best Western.
Moises Kaufman.
My hope is that it's a better Western.
Amanda Grani.
Today we divided up to go to different churches in the community. Moises and I were given a Baptist church. We were welcomed by the Reverend himself at the entrance of the chapel. Here's what I remember of his sermon this morning.
My dear brothers and sisters, I am here today to bring you the word of the Lord. Now, I have a simple truth that I often share with my colleagues, and that is, the word is either sufficient or it is not. Now, scientists tell me that the world, human history, is 6 billion or 7 billion years old. What's a billion years, give or take? The Bible tells me that the world is 6,000 years old. The word is either sufficient or it is not.
The sociology of religion in the West.
Stephen Meade Johnson, Unitarian minister.
Dominant religious traditions in this town. Baptist, Mormon, they're everywhere. It's not just Salt Lake. They're like jam on toast down here.
Well, the Mormon church is a little something different that's going to irritate some folks.
Doug Laws, state ecclesiastical leader for the Mormon church.
And that is, we absolutely believe that God still speaks to men. We don't believe it happened when some folks wrote in the Bible. God speaks to men today, and we believe it. We believe the prophet of the church has the authority to receive inspiration and revelation from God.
So the spectrum would be, to the left, so far left I'm probably sitting by myself, is me and the Unitarian church. Unitarians are, by and large, humanists, many of whom are atheists, so we're not even sure we are a religion. And to the right of the spectrum, to his credit, Father Roger, Catholic priest, who is well established here, and God bless him, he did not equivocate at all when this happened. He hosted the vigil for Matthew that night.
I was really jolted, because when we did the vigil, we wanted to get other ministers involved, and we called some of them, and they were going to get involved, and it was like, we're going to stand back and wait and see what the way the wind is blowing. This angered me immensely. We're supposed to stand out as leaders. I thought, what's going on here?
Now, God has set some boundaries, and one of our responsibilities is to learn. What is it that God wants? So you study Scripture, you look to your leaders, then you know what the bounds are. Once you kind of get a feel for what's out of bounds, then you sort of know what's still in bounds. Now, a proclamation came out about family. Family is defined as one woman, one man, and children. That's a family. That's about as clear as you can state it. There's no sexual deviation in the Mormon Church, no leniency. We just think it's out of bounds.
I warn you, you will be mocked. You will be ridiculed for the singularity of your faith. But you let the Bible be your guide. It's in there. It's all in there.
Christian pastors, the conservative ones, were silent on this. Conservative Christians use the Bible to say, it says here in the Bible, and many Americans believe, they do, that the Bible is the Word of God. So how are you going to fight that?
I am a biblicist, which means the Bible doesn't need me to be true. The Bible is true whether I believe it or not. The Word is either sufficient or it is not.
I arrived in Laramie on September 15th. Looked around, tumbleweed cement factory, and said, what the hell am I doing in Wyoming? 3 weeks later, I found out what the hell I was doing in Wyoming.
I had breakfast this morning with the University of Wyoming student named Jedediah. She's an Islamic feminist who likes to do things her own way.
I've lived in Laramie since I was 4. Yeah. My parents are from Bangladesh, and 2 years ago, because I'm Muslim, I decided to start wearing a scarf. And that's really changed my life in Laramie. Yeah, like people will say things to me like, well, why do you have to wear that thing on your head? And it's like, when I go to the grocery store, I'm not looking to give people Islam 101, you know what I mean? So I'll be like, well, it's part of my religion. And they'll be like, okay, this is the worst part. Because they'll be like, well, I know it's part of your religion, but why? And how am I supposed to go into the whole doctrine of physical modesty and my own spiritual relationship with the Lord, standing there with my pop and chips? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's so unreal to me that a group from New York would be writing a play about Laramie. And I was picturing, like, you're going to be in a play about my town. You're going to be on stage in New York, and you're going to be acting like you're us. That's so weird.
Hello? Yes, hello. My name is Amanda Gronich. I'm here in Laramie working with a theater company. I went to the Reverend's, your husband's church this past Sunday, and I was extremely interested in talking with him about some of his thoughts about recent events.
Well, I don't think he'll want to talk to you. He has very biblical views about homosexuality, and he doesn't condone that kind of violence, but he doesn't condone that kind of lifestyle, if you know what I mean. And we were just bombarded with the press after this whole thing happened, and the media has just been terrible.
Oh, I know, it must have just been terrible.
Oh, yes, I think we're all hoping this just goes away.
Well, do you think maybe I could call back and just speak with him briefly?
Well, all right, you can call back tonight at 9 o'clock.
Thank you so much, I'll do that.
Today, Barb and I went to the Fireside Bar, which is the last place Matthew's seen in public.
The fireside. Definitely feels like a college bar with a couple of pool tables and a stage area set for karaoke night. Still, the few regulars in the late afternoon hardly seem like a college crowd.
First person we talked to was Matt Nicholson, the owner.
My great-great-grandfather moved here in 1862. He owned Laramie's first opera house. It was called the Old Blueprint. And in 1870, Louisa Graham Swain cast the first woman's ballot in any free election in the world. That's why Wyoming is known as the Equality State. So what I want to do is reestablish my bar business as the Old Blueprint Opera House. And good time important. You know, I want to have a restaurant. I want to have a gift shop. I want to have a pool hall and do all this shit. You know, every night's ladies' night. So the fireside is the first step towards the Old Blueprint Opera House. And good time important.
So, what about the night Matthew was here?
We had karaoke that night. 20 or 30 people here. Matthew Shepard came in, sitting right where you're sitting, just hanging out. I mean, if you really want to talk to somebody, you should talk to Matt Galloway. He's the kid that was bartending that night. You'd have to meet him. His character stands for itself. Is Galloway bartending tonight?
Okay. I'm gonna make this brief. Quick. Get it over with. But it will be everything. Factual. Just the facts. Alright. Here we go. 10 o'clock, I clock in, usual time, Tuesday nights. 10:30, Matthew Shepard shows up, alone, sits down, orders a Heineken.
Phil LeBrie, friend of Matthew Shepard.
Matt liked to drink Heineken and nothing else. A Heineken, even though you have to pay $9.50 for a six-pack, he'd always buy the same beer.
So, what can I tell you about Matt? If you had 100 customers like him, it'd be the most perfect bar I've ever been in, okay? And nothing to do with sexual orientation, absolute mannerisms, manners, politeness, intelligence, taking care of me, as in tips, everything, conversation, dress nice, clean cut. Some people, you just know, they come in, please, thank you, and they offer intellect from within their vocabulary. So he kicks it there. He didn't seem to have any worries or like he was looking for anyone, just enjoying his drink and the company around. Then approximately 11:45, 11:45, Aaron McKinney and Russell Henderson come in. And to know their names then, they're the accused. They're the perps. They're the accused. So they come in just very stone-faced, dirty, grungy, rude, gimme, that type of thing. And as you know, they came to the bar and they paid for a pitcher with dimes and quarters. Which, let me tell you, you don't forget that. I mean, you don't forget it. $5.50 in dimes and quarters? That's a freaking nightmare. Now, Henderson and McKinney, they didn't seem intoxicated at all. They just came in, ordered their beer, and took it with them back to the pool room. Then about a half hour later, I kind of noticed them, walking around. No beer. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm not going to ask them if they want another one, because obviously, they just paid for a pitcher with dimes and quarters. I got a real good feeling they don't have any more money.
Romaine Patterson.
Money meant nothing to Matthew because he came from a lot of it. And he would hand over his wallet in 2 seconds because money meant nothing. His shoes might have meant something. They can say it was robbery. I don't buy it for even an iota of a second.
Then a little while later, I look over, and Aaron and Russell have been talking to Matthew Shepard.
Aaron said that a guy walked up to him and said that he was gay and that he wanted to get with Aaron and Russ.
Kristen Price, girlfriend of Aaron McKinney.
And then he got aggravated with it and told him he was straight and didn't want to have anything to do with him and walked off. And that's when he said that him and Russ went to the bathroom and decided to pretend that they were gay and get him into the truck and rob him.
Okay, no. They stated that he approached them, that he came on to them. I absolutely, positively disbelieve and refute that statement 100%. Refute it. I'm going to give you 2 reasons why. One, a character reference. Why would he approach them? Why them? He wasn't approaching anybody else on the bar that night. They say he was gay. He was a flaming gay. He's going to come on to people like that? Bullshit. He never came on to me. Hello? Come on to people like that? I don't believe it. 2, territorialism is the word I will use for this. And that's the fact that Matt was sitting there. Aaron and Russell were in the pool area. Upon their first interaction, they were in Matt's area. The area that Matt had been sitting all night. So who approached who by that?
But Matthew was the kind of person, he would never not talk to someone. If someone started talking to him, he'd just be like, oh, blah, 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 blah. He never had any problem just striking up a conversation with anybody.
Matt did feel lonely a lot of times. Me knowing that and knowing how gullible that Matt could be, he would have walked right into it. The fact that he was at the bar alone without any friends made him that much more vulnerable.
So the only thing is, and this is also what I'm testifying to, because I'm basically the key eyewitness in this case. So the only thing is that I saw Matthew Shepard leave. I saw 2 individuals leave out. Didn't see their faces, but I saw the backs of their heads. And at the same time, Aaron and Russ were no longer in the bar. You did the math.
Actually, I think the DJ was the last one to talk to him on his way out that night. Gave him a cigarette or something. His name is Shadow.
Yeah, I was the last person that Matthew talked to before he left the fireside. Yeah, I was just bullshitting around my shit, you know, and he came up to me, and actually I stopped him, and he came up to me and he was like, you know, hey, Shadow, da-da-da, and I was like, what? And you getting ready to leave? And he was like, yeah, man, and this and that, and then I noticed them two guys, you know, and they stood outside, and I could see it, you know, I seen it. He was standing there, and he looked back at them, and they looked back at him, and he looked back at them, and so I stood there, and I talked to him for a good 10 minutes, you know, and I could see those guys that he was with just getting worried, like, you know, getting like anxious to leave and shit. And when they did leave, yeah, I seen it. You know, it was in a truck. It was in a small black truck, and all three of them sat in the front seat, Matthew in the middle. But yeah, I didn't think anything of it, and you know, I didn't figure them guys would be like that.
I've known Aaron a long time. Aaron was a good kid. I liked Aaron. That's why I was so shocked when I heard this. I'm like, I know he was living out far at his trailer house is what he told me with his girl. They just started dating last summer. Must have gotten pregnant as soon as they started dating, you know, because they had a kid. He was only 21 years old and he was running around with a kid. But you see, that's just the type of guy Aaron was, you know? Always dressed in like big clothes, you know? Tommy Hilfiger, Polo, Gucci, you know? At the time I knew him, he was just a young kid trying to, you know, he just wanted to fit in, acting tough, acting cool, but you could get in his face about it and he'd back down, like he was some kind of scared kid.
Sherry Anenson.
Russell was just so sweet. I mean, he was the one who was the Eagle Scout. I mean, his whole presence was just quiet and sweet. So, of course, I don't understand, and I know people snap and whatever. It wasn't a real intimate relationship. I was just his landlord. I did work with him at the Chuck Wagon, too. I remember, like, there was this one Christmas party where he was totally, like, drunk out of his mind. I mean, we were all party time, but he wasn't belligerent. He didn't change. His personality didn't change. He was the same quiet, meek Russell, and he came up to me and was like, when you get a chance, Sherry, you can have this dance, which we never got a chance to get around to, but now I just want to shake him, you know? What were you thinking? What the hell were you thinking? The fence. I've been out there 4 times. I've taken visitors. The place has become a pilgrimage site. It's so stark and empty, you can't help but think of Matt up there for 18 hours in the nearly freezing temperatures with that view isolated. And the thought, God, my God, why have you forsaken me, comes to mind.
Phil Labrie, friend of Matt's, took us to the fence this morning. I broke down the minute I touched it. I feel such strong kinship with this young man. On the way back, I made sure no one saw me crying.
Greg was crying on the way back. I felt the same, but I couldn't bring myself to tears. I have an interview this afternoon with Aaron Kreifels. He's the boy who found Matthew out there at the fence. I don't think I'm up for it right now. I'll see if someone else can do it.
Well, I took off on my bicycle about 5 o'clock p.m. on Wednesday from my dorm. I kind of just felt like going for a ride, so I went up to Cactus Canyon, and I'm not super familiar with the area, so on my way back down, I didn't know where I was going. I was sort of picking the way to go, which now, it makes me think that God wanted me to find him, because there was no way I was going to go that way. So, I was in some deep-ass sand. And I wanted to turn around, but for some reason, I kept going. And so I went along, and there was this rock on the ground, and I just drilled it. I went over the handlebars and ended up on the ground. So I got up, and I was kind of dusting myself off, and I was looking around, and that's when I noticed something, which ended up to be Matt. And he was just lying there by the fence, and I just thought it was a scarecrow. I was like, Halloween's coming up, it must be a Halloween gag. So I didn't think much of it. So I got my bike, and I walked around the fence that was there. It was a buck-type fence. And I got closer to him, and that's when I noticed his hair. And that was a major key to me, noticing it was a human being. What was his hair? Because I just thought it was a dummy. Seriously, I even noticed the chest going up and down. I still thought it was a dummy, you know, like it was some kind of mechanism. But when I saw that hair, I knew it was a human being. So I ran to the nearest house. I ran as fast as I could, and I called the police.
I responded to the call.
Officer Reggie Flutie.
When I got there, at first the only thing I could see was partially somebody's feet. I got out of my vehicle and raced over. I seen what appeared to be a young man, 13, 14 years old because he was so tiny, lying on his back, and he was tied to the bottom end of a pole. I did the best I could. The gentleman lying on the ground, Matthew Shepard, was covered in dry blood all over his head. There was dry blood beneath him, and he was barely breathing. He was doing the best that he could. I was going to breathe for Matthew, but I couldn't get his mouth to open. His mouth wouldn't open for me. He was covered in, like I said, partially dry blood and dry blood all over his head. The only place where he did not seem to have any blood on his face was what appeared to be where he had been crying down his face. His head was distorted, you know, it didn't look normal. It looked as if he had had a real harsh head wound.
I was working the ER the night that Matthew was brought in. You know. And I don't think that any of us can remember seeing a patient in this sort of condition for a really long time. I mean, you know, those of us who've worked in big city hospitals have seen this sort of thing before, but we have some people here who've not worked in big city hospitals. It's not something you expect to see here. You know, you expect to see it from a car going down a hill at 80 miles an hour. You know, you expect to see these gross sort of injuries, but you don't expect to see it from someone doing it to someone else. But the ambulance report told us it was a beating, so we knew.
There was nothing I could do. I mean, if there was anything I could have done, I would have done it, but there was nothing. And I was like yelling at him at the top of my lungs, trying to get something out of him, like, hey, wake up, hello? But he didn't move. He didn't flinch. He didn't anything.
He was tied to the fence. His hands were thumbs out in what we call a cuffing position, the way we handcuff people. He was bound with a thin white rope that went around the bottom of the pole about 4 inches off the ground. His shoes were missing. He was tied extremely tight, so I had to use my boot knife and try to slip it in between the wrist and the rope. I had to be extremely careful as not to harm Matthew any further.
You know, the first thing you think is, you hope it's somebody from out of town who comes through and does something like this. You know, stuff like this happens. You know, shit happens. And it happens in Laramie, but certainly when someone's been beaten repeatedly, this is something that offends us. Now, that's a good word. It offends us.
He was bound extremely tight, and I finally got the knife through there. I'm sorry. So I rolled him over onto his left side, and when I did that, he quit breathing. Immediately, I rolled him back onto his back, and when I did that, it was just enough of an adjustment. It gave me enough room to cut him free. Later, I seen the EMS unit trying to get the location. When the ambulance got there, we put a neck brace on him, put him on a backboard, and scooted him out from underneath the fence. Later, Rob drove the ambulance to Ivinson's emergency hospital room.
Now, the strange thing is, 20 minutes before Matthew Shepard was brought in, Aaron McKinney was brought in by his girlfriend. I guess he got into a fight later that night back in town. And so there I am, working on Aaron, and the ambulance comes and brings in Matthew Shepard. And at this point, I have no idea there's any connection. You know, no idea at all. So I excuse myself from Aaron, and I go and I treat Matthew. And so there, in one room of the ER, is Aaron McKinney. And in another room, 2 doors down, is Matthew Shepard. And it was pretty obvious from the moment that he came in that his care is beyond our capability. So we got on the phone with the head of neurosurgery down at Poudre Valley Hospital. And he was on the road in about an hour, 15 minutes, I think.
They showed me a picture. Days later, I saw a picture of Matthew. I never would have recognized him.
You know, I found out the connection 2 days later. And I was very struck. You know, these were 2 kids. They were both my patients, and they were 2 kids. I took care of both of them, of both their bodies. And for a second, I couldn't help but wonder if this is how God feels, you know? How he's looking down on all of us and how we're all his kids, our bodies, our souls. And I felt a great deal of compassion for both of them. John Peacock, Matthew's academic advisor.
The news reports came rolling in on Thursday, but no names were mentioned. The brutality of the crime was not mentioned. All that was mentioned was that there was a man, a Laramie man, found beaten on the prairie, basically. Later on in the evening, they mentioned his name, and it was like, that kid, that's not the Matthew Shepard that I know. That's not my student. That's not this person who I've been meeting with.
I was in the coffee shop,
Romaine Patterson.
and someone pulled me aside and said, I don't know much, but they say there's been a young man beaten in Laramie, and they say his name is Matthew Shepard. And he says, do you think this could be our Matthew? And I say, well, yeah, it sounds like it could be our Matthew. So I call up my sister Trish, and I'm just like, tell me what you know. I'm just like, you need to tell me anything you know, because I don't know anything.
So I'm talking to my sister, and that's when the whole story comes up on the Channel 5 news, and it was just like, boom.
The news reports kept trickling in. Young University of Wyoming student, his age, his description. It was like, oh my God.
And I felt sick to my stomach. It's just instantly sick to your stomach. And I had to tell Romaine, yes, it was Matthew. It was your friend.
Well, I'll tell you what is overwhelming.
Matt Galloway.
So, Friday morning, I first find out. I go to class and walk out, and boom, there it is in the brain email. So I drive to the nearest newsstand and pick up a Laramie Boomerang because I want more details. So I buy that and drive home. And before I can even open the paper, my boss calls me and he says,
Did you hear about what happened?
I'm like, yeah.
Was he in the bar Tuesday night?
I go, yes, he was.
We gotta get down to the bar right now. We gotta talk about this. We gotta discuss what's gonna go on.
By this time, I was starting to get upset, but still, the severity wasn't out yet.
It was a Thursday afternoon.
Rulon Stacy at Poudre Valley Hospital.
Well, I got a call. We just got this kid in from Wyoming. It looks like he may be the victim of a hate crime. We have a couple newspaper reporters here asking questions. And so we decided that we needed one spokesperson. As CEO, I'll do that. And we'll try and gather all the information that we can.
And then I watched the 10 o'clock news that night where they started talking about the nature and the seriousness of it.
So I'm on the phone with Mickelson, and he's like,
We need to go to the arraignment so we can identify these guys and make sure they were at the bar.
so we go to the arraignment.
Our focus today turns to Laramie, Wyoming, in the Albany County Courthouse, where Aaron James McKinney and Russell Arthur Henderson are being charged for the brutal beatings of Matthew Shepard, a gay University of Wyoming student.
The arraignment was on Friday, right around lunchtime. I said, I'm just going, and I went. It's just down the street, so I walked a few blocks and I went. Has anybody told you about the arraignment? Well, there were about 100 people from town and just as many news media by this point. A lot more of the facts had come out. The fact that the perpetrators were kids themselves, local kids that everybody in town had some sort of relationship to. And I think what everybody was really waiting on, pins and needles for what would happen when the perpetrators walked in. And what happened? They walk in, in their complete orange jumpsuits and their shackles. And you could have heard a pin drop. It was incredibly solemn. I mean, a lot of people were teary-eyed at this point. And then the judge walks in and does a reading. It's a statement of the evidence that the prosecution has. It's a statement of the facts, and the statement of the facts was...
The essential facts are that the defendants, Aaron James McKinney and Russell Arthur Henderson, met Matthew Shepard at the Fireside Bar. And after Mr. Shepard confided that he was gay, the subjects deceived him into leaving with them in their vehicle to a remote area. Upon arrival at said area, the subjects tied him to a buck fence, robbed him, tortured him, and beat him. Both defendants were later contacted by members of the Laramie Police Department who observed inside the cab of their pickup a credit card and a pair of black patent leather shoes belonging to the victim, Matthew Shepard. They also
I mean, it lasted 5-10 minutes, but it kept on getting more and more horrific, ending with...
Said defendants left the victim begging for his life.
Sergeant King.
How could this happen? I think a lot of people don't understand, even I don't understand how somebody can do something like this. We have one of the most vocal populations of gay people in the state, and it's pretty much live and let live.
Laramie resident Jeffrey Lockwood.
My secret hope was that they were from somewhere else. That then, of course, you can create that distance. We don't grow children like that here. Well, it's pretty clear that we do grow children like that here.
So that was the arraignment, and my response was pretty catatonic. Not sleeping, not eating. Don't leave me alone right now.
More and more details came in about the sheer brutality, motivations, how this happened, and then, quite frankly, the media descended, and there was no time to reflect on it anymore.
Laramie, Wyoming, often called the gem
It was
city
huge.
of the plains, is now at the
It was
eye.
huge, and we're talking
The cowboy
hundreds
state has
of
the rednecks
reporters.
and the officers.
As a gay college
There are no
student,
hospitalized and people
I am outraged and sickened by the heinous crimes committed against Matthew Shepard. My heartfelt sympathies go to the family.
Governor, you haven't pushed hate crime
I
legislation.
would like
in
to
the
urge the people of Wyoming against overreacting in a way that gives one group special rights over others. We will wait and see if this vicious beating was motivated by hate.
Governor, one question, just one comment.
Matthew Shepard medical update for 3 p.m. Saturday, October 10th.
I looked out there, and where there had been before 2 or 3 reporters, it must have been 10 or 15 still photographers, another 20 or 30 reporters, and 10 video cameras. The parents had just arrived. I had barely introduced myself to them. I looked out there and I thought, my gosh, what am I going to do? Matthew Shepard arrived in critical condition at approximately 9:15 p.m., October 7th. When he arrived, he was unresponsive and breathing support was being provided. Matthew's major injuries upon arrival consisted of hypothermia and a fracture from behind his head to just in front of his right ear. This has caused bleeding in the brain, as well as pressure on the brain. Matthew's temperature has fluctuated over the last 24 hours, ranging from 98 to 106 degrees. We've had difficulty controlling his temperature. Matthew's parents arrived at approximately 7 o'clock p.m. on October 9th. They did release the following statement. First of all, we want to thank the American public for their kind thoughts about Matthew and their fond wishes for his speedy recovery. We appreciate your prayers and goodwill, and we know that they are something Matthew would appreciate too. We also have a special request for the members of the media. Matthew is very much in need of his family at this time, and we ask that you respect our privacy, as well as Matthew's, so we can concentrate all of our efforts, thoughts, and love on our son. Thank you very much.